Hey everyone, I'm Brian with Aromacup.com, and thanks as always for joining me here in my virtual coffee shop brought to you by Aromacup.com. In today's video, I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison, I know everybody loves these, of three Bosch Tassimo single-serve coffee machines. I've got the Tassimo T47 and the Tassimo T55 and the Tassimo T65. Now we've done in-depth reviews of all of these machines in the past, so you can check out our videos to find out everything you want to know about these machines. But what I'm going to do is just give you some comparison so that you have all the information that you need if you're planning on buying one of these machines. So we'll dive in, we'll talk about features. We're not going to brew too much with these because again we've covered that in other videos, but we are going to talk about the things you need to know so you can make an informed decision before you purchase. So let's dive in and start talking about all of these machines side by side. Okay, we're going to start talking about the trays because we always like to move from the bottom up on our machines. On the T47, the tray is very different from the other two machines because the T47's tray, you pull it out and then you slide it upwards in order to adjust how it is that you're going to brew into a smaller cup or mug or something along those lines. Whereas over here on the 55 and the 65, these trays, first of all, they lock in, they're removable, as are all of the trays. But one of the things that you're going to notice about these trays is that they have these small levers, and you just move those levers to the left or the right, and when you move them, that adjusts the height of the tray. Now, another distinct difference here is the amount of clearance that you have from the tray to the brew spigot on both the T47 and the T55. And this is over the T65 where the clearance is definitely much less. The reason for this is that the T47 and the T55 are both part of what we're calling the second generation of Bosch Tassimo machines, which also leads to some other differences that we'll talk about as we move up in the machine, but that's definitely a distinct one, is that clearance that you have between tray and brew spigot. All right, so let's move up to the brew spigot, and as I say, the T47 and the T55, these are both part of the second generation of the Bosch Tassimo machines, and what makes them very different and part of the second gen is the locking mechanisms for the brew trays. Very different with this sort of front-facing fold down and locking mechanism, whereas over here on the T65, you're going to notice that it's kind of spring-loaded. I open it and it just sort of opens by itself, but it looks very different and it locks down in a very different fashion, also because there's this locking ring inside of the unit right here. Now this locking ring, when you press on this tab, it loosens the locking ring, and what this does is this locks down your T-disc. Let's talk about water tanks on all three of these machines. Now, the T47 and the T55 both have the same size water tank, 47 ounces. On the T65, you have a larger one, 61 ounces. Now, the T65 and the T55 both give you the option to add a water filter to the tank. Now, the T47 does not have a water filter to be added to the water tank. So there's a distinct difference between the T47 over the 55 and the 65. Now, one more thing worth mentioning is that you're going to notice that the tank for the T65 has a handle and a lid, and on that lid is an indicator which allows you to set a new time length for when you put in a new water filter. However, over here on the T55 and the 47, these water tanks just slide into the back of the unit. On the T55, there is an indicator which allows you to reset when you last put a water filter in, but it's on the top of the unit right here. And then again on the T47, because it has no water filter, you do not have that indicator for when you last replaced the water filter. Let's talk about the buttons on all of these machines because there are some distinct differences. Let's start with the T47. T47 is probably the most simple operation of all these machines. It's one single button, and you just simply press that to brew, use that for adding more water to your beverage, and all those other different operations you can do using the one button. On the T55, this button is a little more involved. You have the one single button which allows you to start brewing, but then you also have these two buttons that are on the top and the bottom of that brew button. What these do is they allow you to vary the amount of water that you're going to add to the beverage. So this machine over the others, in that sense, allows you to really change the brew strength. Usually that's all done using the intelligent barcode technology that exists in all of these machines. Now over here on the T65, it again has that one single button, but this button is multi-use, and that leads me to talk about the screens on each of these. Now you do have a small LCD display on the T65, and that's going to give you some information about when you're brewing and when it's time to descale the machine and some various things like that. It's backlit blue, which is cool and very easy to read. Now you don't have that on either the T55 or the 47. On both of these, what you have is just a 3 LED display, which tells you when the machine is ready to brew, when it's time to descale the machine, when it's time to add water, and various operations such as that. So I do find it a little unfortunate that these machines, for being second generation machines, do not have these LCD screens on them of some kind, but I imagine maybe we could see that in the future, and we're just seeing that on these brand new second generation machines that Bosch has decided to take out that LCD screen. Now, that leads me into talking about the brew stations for each of these machines. Now again, they're all pretty much the same with the exception of the locking mechanisms on the 47 and the 55. They all use, however, the intelligent barcode technology which Bosch has pioneered with their single-serve machines. Inside of the brew station for each of these machines is a barcode reader. That barcode reader will read a barcode on a T-disc, and if we take out a T-disc right here, I'll just show you what this looks like. Each T-disc has a barcode on it, and that barcode is read by the machine, and that barcode includes the information about how that machine should brew that specific T-disc that you happen to be putting into the machine. So they all make use of the same intelligent barcode technology. It's just that each of them has a different way of locking down and keeping that T-disc inside the machine while it brews your beverage. Let's talk about pricing on all of these machines. Now on the T47, again a second generation Bosch Tassimo machine, looking at $139.99. On the Tassimo T55 and the T65, you're looking at the same price point, $169.99. Now, if I had to guess, I would imagine that the T65 is probably going to go away at some point or another because, again, it uses a very different brewing mechanism when it comes to actually locking down onto your T-disc. And the reason for that is pretty much also a safety-based thing, also on top of being able to improve your beverage type. If you want to find out where you can buy these machines, you're going to want to check out the links in the description of our video. If you want to find out how you can save money as well, get some coupons, visit us on Aromacup.com where we often have coupons which will save you money on these machines. So we're going to help you to find out all the easy ways that you can add these to your own at-home coffee shop. All right, so bottom line on all these machines, they all have very much the same operation, as I say, simple one-button operation. Some of those buttons, there's a little bit more in access, some other features of the machine, but brewing is very simple. All use the intelligent barcode technology. All of them use T-discs, and they can all do a number of different beverages. Hot coffees, hot teas, iced coffees, iced teas, and specialty drinks like lattes, cappuccinos, and hot chocolates. So you do get a lot of different options when it comes to brewing with all three of these machines. The trays obviously are a little bit different, especially on the T47 as opposed to the T55 and the 65, but really they're all very simple and easy to use. It's just that that clearance difference is definitely a distinct difference between the 47, the 55, and comparing those to the T65. Of course, the brewing mechanisms themselves, very, very different. As I say, this is a little more secure on the second generation machines, really locks down on that T-disc and makes sure that you get the best possible pressure to get your brew. Over here on the T65, again, it's a good and well-built operation in order for brewing your T-disc, but it is a little more involved because you have to actually pop that T-disc holder ring up, put your T-disc in. It might take a little more time than some folks are really willing to deal with. That is a downside over here on the T65. And of course, finally, when it comes to looks and overall operation, they all look really good. They don't take up a lot of space. They don't weigh very much. They all have fairly sizable water tanks. The T65's is a little bit bigger. The T65 looks a little cooler at the LCD screen, but overall I don't think that that's really a game changer when you talk about your second generation machines, because they really still offer all the same cool features that you can get with a Bosch Tassimo machine. And of course the price on all of these I think is really great, especially if you're looking to get into single serve coffee and you want to do a number of different beverages. All of these Bosch machines are really going to hit that mark for you very well. So there you go, guys. I hope you found that useful. It's a side-by-side comparison of the Tassimo T47, the Tassimo T55, and the Tassimo T65, all coming to you from Bosch. Remember, if you want to find out where you can buy these, check out the description in our video. If you want to find out ways you can save money on them, get some coupons, visit us at Aromacup.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us here in the comments on our video or visit us at Aromacup.com. We're always happy to talk coffee with you guys. I want to thank you guys for joining me here in my virtual coffee shop. As always, I'm Brian. I want to remind you to enjoy your cup, and I'll see you next time. Take care.